Last summer, I moved to a small village to escape everything. I had just turned 35, still reeling from a family tragedy. I thought staying in an old Victorian manor would give me the quiet I needed. The house had charm with its creaky floors, tall windows, and dusty chandeliers. I pictured myself working on my art, finding inspiration in my solitude. The first night felt peaceful. I unpacked and settled in. The sun set slowly, and it was nice to be alone. But on the second night, I woke up to heavy footsteps in the hallway. I checked the clock. It was about 2 a.m. I thought it was just the house settling or my imagination. I tried to go back to sleep, but sleep didn't come easily. As the week passed, things felt off. I would find my coffee cup moved from the table to the counter. Once, I opened my sketchbook, but I hadn't touched it since the day before. I heard whispers, too soft to make out, but when I looked around, I found nothing. My heart raced. I felt a cold breeze, though the windows were closed. Shadows darted at the edge of my vision, but I shrugged it off. I told myself, it's just an old house. Each night, I noticed a flickering light upstairs. It glowed faintly through a door at the end of the hallway. I climbed the stairs slowly, each creak beneath my feet seeming louder than the last. My breath felt heavy. Each time I reached the top, the light vanished before I could see it. I walked into the hallway, hoping for a glimpse of something. But it was darker than before. I should have been scared, but I felt drawn to it. Then it got worse. I started jumping at every noise. It was like something was there with me. Some nights, it felt like figures loomed in the shadows. I couldn't tell if my mind was playing tricks or if I was really losing it. I kept telling myself, it's just an old house. By the end of the week, I sat trembling on the floor of the manor. Night fell, and the stillness wrapped around me like a heavy blanket. Suddenly, I heard what sounded like my name. James the First turned fast, my heart pounding. There was no one there. I felt so cold, and everything seemed wrong that I didn't feel safe anymore. I grabbed my bag and thought about leaving. But then I heard it again, James. It came from behind me. I didn't want to turn around, but I felt I had to. Nothing was there, just that heavy silence that it was time to go. My hands shook as I reached for the door. I couldn't shake the feeling that those shadows were still there, waiting. I hurried down the stairs, never looking back. I would never forget that place or the shadows that never left. The morning light hit my face, but it did little to lift the lingering dread. I woke to the smell of burnt toast and the sound of my own breathing. I sat up in bed, heart still racing from the events of the night before. I was convinced I had to leave, yet the thought of venturing away from the manor felt tied to the heavy history resting in its walls. That I stumbled into the kitchen, thinking a hasty breakfast might clear my mind. As I prepared a new batch of coffee, I noticed the kitchen window was slightly ajar. I was sure I'd closed it the night before. A chill ran down my spine. I pushed the window shut, but I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched. After breakfast, I decided it was time to speak to someone about the house. The village felt small enough that someone had to know its stories. I grabbed my coat and headed out, hoping to uncover something that might explain what was happening. I walked down the narrow, cobblestone streets, peeking into quaint shops. Most were closed, but I found a small cafe that was busy with locals. That I walked inside and chose a table by the window. The chatter of the morning crowd felt welcoming, but I was restless. I began to eavesdrop on two elderly women. They were talking about ghosts, how the English countryside was full of them. My ears perked up. I leaned in, hoping to catch something relevant. Then I heard it. The old manor. Oh yes, it's been haunted for years, one woman said, her voice low, almost conspiratorial. People hear voices and footsteps at night. They say the previous owner went mad. I couldn't help but feel my stomach twist. The word sat heavy in my chest. I had avoided rumors, but now they were crashing down around me. This wasn't just old house quirks, something more sinister lingered. What happened to him? I suddenly asked, surprising myself and the two women. They turned to me in surprise. The more talkative woman hesitated, then said, "He lost his family in a fire. Just vanished one night. Some say they still roam the halls, looking for him." My breath caught in my throat. Was I experiencing whatever he had? I barely finished my coffee before I rushed out, my heart pounding. I needed to go back to the manor. Maybe I could figure out why I felt so drawn to it. When I returned, the air felt thick, almost electric. I pushed the door open and immediately sensed that something was different. The house seemed to breathe. Shadows flickered in the corners, and I swore I could hear faint whispers echoing through the halls that I climbed the stairs, drawn again by the fading glow of the light at the end of the hallway. This time, it didn't flicker out when I approached. I reached the door, my heart racing, and gently turned the handle. It creaked as it opened, revealing a small, dusty room I had yet to explore. Then everything shifted. The light brightened, and I saw them shadows moving along the walls, whispering my name. "James, come." The chorus of voices beckoned. I stumbled back, breathless. I was not alone after all. Suddenly, the lights flickered and everything went dark. I stood frozen, anxiety building within me. What waited in the darkness? I could either find out or run. But I realized running would only get me trapped in a loop of fear. I couldn't turn back now. The shadows were calling, and I felt like I belonged to them. I stood in the pitch-black room, my heart pounding in my ears. Fear coiled around me like a fraying rope. I took a deep breath, attempting to steady myself as the whispers grew louder, swirling through the darkness. James. The name felt like an echo from another time. With trembling hands, I fumbled for the wall. My fingers brushed against the worn wallpaper, sending a shiver through me. I took a cautious step forward, hoping to find the light switch. Just as I did, a cold gust of air swept through, fluttering the hem of my shirt and sending chills along my spine. "Hello?" I called out, my voice wavering. No response. Just silence. It felt as if the house were holding its breath, waiting. Suddenly, the light flickered back on. I was standing in the small room I had opened earlier, but it was now far more vivid than before. Dust motes danced in the air, illuminated by the single bulb hanging from the ceiling. The room was cluttered with old furniture draped in white sheets, forgotten relics trapped in time. That I turned slowly, scanning the space, feeling both curious and uneasy. A heavy desk caught my attention. It seemed out of place, as if it belonged to a time long gone. I approached it, but before I could touch anything, I caught a glimpse of something shiny beneath one of the sheets. Pulling the fabric back, I revealed a small, ornate mirror. It was dusty but elegant, with a gilded frame shaped like twisting vines. As I lifted it, my reflection stared back at me, but the image was oddly distorted. I looked closer and realized that the shadows in the background were deep and writhing. A flicker of movement caught my eye. That was when I felt a presence, standing just behind me. My pulse raced, and I nearly dropped the mirror. I turned sharply, but found only empty space. The air thickened, and the whispers returned, more urgent now. They weren't just calling my name, they were pleading. "Find us, remember." The voices layered over each other, creating a haunting chorus that sent a raw panic through me. I backed away from the desk, my heart hammering against my ribs. I felt trapped, not knowing if I should flee or confront whatever I had awakened. With a burst of bravery, I made my way toward the door. As I reached for the handle, an icy hand gripped my shoulder. I froze. Cold dread pooled in my stomach, and I could hardly breathe. The room felt suffocating, as if the walls were closing in. "James, you have to listen, find the truth," the whisper came again, closer this time. I turned slowly, dread pooling in my chest. I didn't know what I would see. My pulse throbbed in my ears, and before I could react, the door slammed shut behind me. The mirror dropped from my hands, shattering on the ground. I staggered back, my breath caught in my throat, the shadows twisted and whirled, threatening to consume me. I stumbled deeper into the room, searching for any way out. Just then, a soft light pulsed from the corner, a flicker of hope in the storm of darkness. I had to find it. I searched frantically, every shadow feeling like a threat as I approached. Maybe it held the answers I was searching for. But as I steeled myself to move toward it, I felt a shiver run down my spine. I wasn't alone. That realization sent me into a panic. I had to uncover the truth before it was too late. The flickering light drew me in like a moth to a flame. With my heart racing, I stepped closer, the whispers still swirling around me. They were relentless, urging me to uncover whatever secrets lay hidden in that dim glow. I squinted into the darkness, straining to see what was casting the light. As I neared the corner, I made out a small lantern, its glass sides covered in a thin layer of dust. A soft, warm light seeped through, contrasting sharply with the chilling air. I reached out, my fingers trembling as I lifted it. The moment I did, the whispers seemed to hush for a heartbeat. "James," came the whisper again, but this time it felt different. It wasn't just a plea, it was a warning that I turned back to the room, the shadows deeper now, shifting like wraiths caught in a dream. Panic surged in me again, but I couldn't just stand there. I focused on the lantern, moving it around to illuminate the space better. That's when I saw it, a piece of paper sticking out from beneath the desk. The light caught it, and I felt a magnetic pull towards it. I dropped the lantern to free my hands, and it rolled away, the light still glowing faintly. I knelt, gripping the edge of the desk for support as I reached for the paper. As I pulled it free, I could see it was an old photograph. My breath hitched. The image showed a group of people, their faces familiar yet ghostly. They stood in front of the manor, a twisted tree looming behind them. In the center was a woman with striking features and intense eyes that seemed to stare right through me. Was that supposed to be me? Just then, the whispers returned, louder than before, as if surprised by my discovery. "Remember us, we are here." I flinched, clutching the photograph to my chest. I glanced up, expecting to see the apparition, but there was nothing. The air felt dense, charged with electricity. The photograph slipped from my fingers, landing flat on the ground. I could hardly breathe. What was I meant to remember? Who were these people? The shadows loomed closer, as if they wanted me to join them in their eternal gloom. With urgency, I flipped the photo over, desperate for any clue. There, scrawled in fading ink, was a name, Emily. A chill shot down my spine. I felt connected in a way I couldn't explain, as if the name held the answers to everything. Suddenly, the lantern flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness once more. My heart raced. I fought the urge to scream. My mind raced with questions. Had I disturbed something? Then, without warning, a low growl reverberated through the air, shaking the very walls around me. The sound was unnatural and primal. I spun around, trying to pinpoint the source, my breath quickening. The growl was too close. Someone or something was in the room with me. I froze, my heart pounding in my ears. The growl echoed again, deeper this time, and a flicker of movement caught my eye. The shadows shifted, expanding and contracting like something alive. I backed away slowly, barely able to breathe. It felt as if the darkness had a will of its own, pressing in on me. "Emily," I whispered, hoping it would somehow bring clarity. But all I heard was my own voice bouncing back, mingling with the lingering growls. I had to escape, to find light and safety. Gripping the edge of the desk, I turned and stumbled toward the door, my mind racing. I grabbed the handle, but it resisted. Panic clawed at me. Why was it stuck? I pulled harder, but the door remained locked, as if it had some enchanted hold keeping it shut. From the corner of my eye, I noticed the lantern ID dropped. It had rolled under a chair, still glowing faintly. I hurried to retrieve it, my fingers brushing against the cool metal. The moment I lifted it, the warm light enveloped me, illuminating the chaos of the old office. That I took a deep breath and turned back to the shadows. They had changed, becoming less formless but more intense. I could see shapes flickering at the edges of my vision, faces twisted in anguish or perhaps longing. Were they trying to reach out to me? "Do you want something from me?" I called into the dark, my voice trembling. There was no response, but the air grew heavier, thick with unspoken words. The growl returned, louder and closer, now sounding less like a creature and more like a chorus of voices. "Remember." They cried in unison. My stomach churned. Remember what? I felt frantic. I needed to understand, but fear threatened to paralyze me. I scanned the room with the lantern, willing the light to push back the darkness. Then something caught my eye, a small mirror on the wall, half hidden by shadows. It was tarnished and cracked, but as the lantern's light hit its surface, I saw movement behind me. I swung the light around, but the room was empty again, but in the mirror, I caught a glimmer of something. It wasn't just my reflection, but the faint outline of a woman standing apart from me, her face indistinct yet hauntingly familiar. "Emily?" I whispered, but she didn't answer. Instead, the woman in the mirror reached out as if beckoning me closer. Fear surged. I felt a strange compulsion to approach. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice shaky. The shadows twitched, filling the space with that electrifying hum. Just as I took a step forward, the growl erupted again, louder and angrier. In that instant, I understood whatever was lurking wanted something from me. It did not want to let me leave. With renewed urgency, I turned back to the door, my pulse racing. I slammed my shoulder against it, willing it to give way. The wood creaked in protest, but I felt a warmth pooling behind me, a sense of urgency, as if the very walls were urging me to confront the darkness. Then the door finally gave, swinging open with a loud thud. I hesitated, glancing back at the mirror. The apparition now looked desperate, a tear streaming down her cheek. "James," she whispered, and that single word wrapped around my chest. I was caught between the pull of the dark room and the promise of freedom. One choice would set me free, and the other held all the answers I could ever want. And somewhere in the depth of my uncertainties, I knew I had to choose. I darted through the door, heart racing. The shadows chased me, eager to drag me back. With the lantern held high, I stumbled into the corridor, illuminated only by its flickering light. I turned to look behind me, half expecting to see the woman's face in the mirror, but the darkness seemed to swallow everything I'd just escaped. "Keep moving," I muttered to myself, pushing aside the sick feeling in my stomach. But where was I going? The manor was still unfamiliar, its layout a tangled mystery. I took a deep breath and hurried down the hall, praying that there was a way out. The floor creaked under my weight, each step echoing in the silence. My mind raced with questions. Who was the woman? Why did she call my name? The growl echoed in the back of my mind, a constant reminder that I wasn't alone. That I reached a staircase, its steps dark and uninviting. I hesitated, glancing at the door behind me, the only thing separating me from whatever was lurking in that office. A shiver ran down my spine. If I stayed here, I could end up trapped. I had to find a way out. I gripped the lantern tighter and began my ascent. The light flickered, casting strange shapes on the wall. I fought against the urge to look back, afraid of what I might see. Instead, I focused on the stairs, counting each step until I reached the landing above. It opened into a hallway lined with doors, some ajar. The air felt different up here, thicker, heavy with the weight of unsaid words. I scanned the doors one by one, unsure of where to go. My gaze caught on one door at the end, slightly ajar. Something drew me to it. I moved closer, fighting the anxiety clawing at my thoughts. As I reached out to push it open, the door suddenly swung inwards on its own. I jumped back, instinctively raising the lantern. The room was dark, shrouded in shadows that piled in the corners. I stepped inside, heart pounding. The lantern exposed dusty furniture draped with sheets, remnants of a forgotten time. My gut twisted. Had someone lived here? Or had they vanished like the woman? Then I noticed a picture frame sitting crooked on a side table. I approached, my breath hitching in my throat. It was an old photo of a family. I recognized the woman's face, the same one from the mirror. Emily, I whispered, feeling the weight of her loss settle over me. Why was she trapped here? Was I meant to find her? Suddenly, the temperature dropped. I shivered. The growl returned, lower and more haunting. It resonated through the floor, vibrating in my bones. I turned, looking back towards the door. This place felt wrong, like a trap designed to keep me here. We have to go. I shouted, knowing no one would hear me. I couldn't stay, I had to keep moving. I backed away from the picture, my intuition screaming for me to leave. That's when I saw it. A flicker in my peripheral vision, a shadow moving quickly past the doorway. My breath caught. Something was hunting me, and it was close that I sprinted toward the hall, the lantern light weaving wildly. I tore through the door, heart racing as I plunged back into the corridor. But when I reached the staircase, there was no way to go but down. The shadows pressed against me, whispering, "Remember, remember." I felt the pull of the darkness, stronger than ever, and I knew one thing for sure, I had to confront whatever waited in that office. There were answers hidden in those shadows, and whether I wanted to or not, I was meant to face them. I stumbled down the stairs, gripping the lantern like a lifeline. Each step felt like it could be my last. The shadows swirled around me, thick and hungry, as if eager to consume me whole. I had to reach the office again. Maybe there was something there, some clue that could explain the woman, the growl, and this entire twisted manor. My footsteps echoed in the empty space, a constant reminder that I wasn't meant to be here. The flickering light cast ghostly shapes along the wallpaper, and I barely registered the doors as I raced past. I could feel the dread creeping in, filling the small cracks in my resolve. The air felt electric, almost alive, sparking with tension. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, I was faced with the hallway that led back to the office. My heart pounded. Should I turn back? I felt drawn into the darkened door like a moth to a flame. Pushing my fear aside, I stepped forward. As I neared the office door, a sense of urgency surged through me. I had to find out what awaited inside. I glanced back, half expecting the woman or something worse to materialize behind me. The corridor lay empty, the stillness almost mocking. With a deep breath, I placed my hand on the knob. It glowed faintly in the lantern's light, seeming to pulse with anticipation. Slowly, I turned it and stepped in, the hinges creaking in protest. The office was transformed. Where once chaos reigned, it now appeared utterly still, as though time had frozen. The papers littered across the desks were neatly stacked, and the chair sat facing a darkened corner. The unsettling emptiness stilled my breath. Something had changed. Had the darkness rearranged the room itself? "Emily," I whispered, hoping the name would fill the space with some warmth. The name felt heavy, a weight I couldn't shake off. My eyes drifted to the corner where shadows seemed to merge and thickened anew. And that's when I felt a presence, colder than the air. Before I could react, the growl roared back to life, echoing off the walls. This time, it felt more personal, directed at me. I bolted toward the desk in a scramble, searching for anything that would shed light on this nightmare. My fingers brushed against something, a leather-bound journal laying parallel to a faded letter. I snatched it up, afraid to look back. The growl was closer now, vibrating in my bones. I opened the journal, the pages crumbling under my touch. The handwriting was jagged, and words jumped out at me, "It's coming for me. Emily is trapped. I must warn her." A chill crawled up my spine. Was this the man in the photo, her husband? Did he know what had happened to her? I scanned further, but I didn't have time. The shadows were shifting, moving faster, judging by the increased intensity of that familiar growl. Suddenly, I caught a glimpse of something at the edge of my vision, a flicker of movement, this time much larger, emerging from the corner. Panic ignited in my chest, demanding I escape. That I stumbled backward, the journal slipping from my hands and crashing to the floor. It opened wide, pages flipping frantically. In my haste to find the exit, I missed the details of what it revealed. Was it the answer I needed or just another trap? I ran for the door, breathless, but it slammed shut in front of me, the darkness gathering like a storm, drawing near. "Let me out!" I shouted, but my voice felt weak against the rising growl. The shadows thickened, and I knew I was out of time. Whatever was lurking in this house had found me, and now it was angry. I slammed my shoulder against the door, desperation fueling my strength, but it barely budged. My heart raced, matching the crescendo of that growl. The shadows closed in, dark tendrils creeping along the walls, hungry and relentless. Panic twisted in my stomach. I had to think. My eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape. I spotted the window, high up and barred, but it was my only option. Ignoring the painful thoughts of heights, I raced toward it, but before I got halfway, something lunged from the corner. My breath hitched as a dark figure emerged, all teeth and menace. I stumbled back, colliding with the desk, knocking a stack of papers to the ground. One of them caught my eye, the ink smudged but still readable. It looked like a map of the manor, with cryptic annotations in the margins. "Focus," I told myself, pushing aside fear. I grabbed the map, hoping it would hold the key to surviving this nightmare. A sense of urgency surged within me. The shadows were almost tangible, wrapping around my ankles. I needed to act. That I studied the scrawled notes, tracing the lines with trembling fingers. One word jumped out: escape. The annotations pointed to a series of hidden passages. I had to find them. They might lead to safety. Just then, a flash of movement caught my eye again. The figure in the corner shifted, and I felt the temperature drop. It was prowling, breathing heavily. I could see glimmers of eyes in the dark. They were fixated on me. Without hesitation, I darted toward the office's back wall, where the map indicated an entrance. My heart hammered against my ribs as I pushed against the wall, frantically searching for a latch or handle. Then I spotted it, a small outline, almost invisible against the wallpaper. With all my might, I yanked at it, and a panel creaked open, revealing a narrow passageway. A waft of stale air brushed against my face, filled with the scent of damp earth. I didn't think twice. I crawled inside, hoping it would save me, but the growl grew louder, now a guttural roar, shaking the ground beneath me. The shadows clawed at the opening, but I dove into the passage just in time. Darkness swallowed me whole, closing the entrance behind me. That I crawled through the tunnel, pushing my way past remnants of dust and cobwebs. I didn't dare look back, but I could still feel that hungry presence, just out of reach. The walls were rough, scraping my hands as I pressed on, my breath ragged. Finally, I halted as I came to a fork in the tunnel. Panic surged anew. What choice should I make? I could hear scuffling behind me, frantic movements as whatever hunted me sought to find an opening in the darkness. Instinct guided me. I chose the left path. The growl echoed in the distance. If I listened closely, I could muster my focus. Then I saw it. A faint glow shimmered ahead, drawing me toward it. Relief washed over me, but the growl escalated again, this time sounding closer and more furious. Before I could process it, I reached the end of the tunnel. Light poured through a gap, but as I approached, I realized I was not alone. Standing in the shadows, an unmistakable silhouette loomed, the woman from the photograph, eyes blazing, a twisted smile on her lips. "Welcome back," she whispered, as the shadows engulfed me in a suffocating embrace. I gasped for breath, the oppressive darkness surrounding me like a thick blanket. The woman, still smiling, took a step closer. My instincts screamed at me to run, to escape this twisted déjà vu, but my body refused to move. "Did you miss me?" she asked, her tone sweet yet laced with malice. Memories of that photograph flooded back, her joyful face trapped behind the glass. But this wasn't the same woman. This was something darker, something unnatural. The shadows writhed around her, roiling like smoke. They surged toward me, coiling and twisting like snakes. My pulse quickened. I had to act. Glancing around through the dim light, I looked for any path to freedom. The tunnel behind me felt like an abyss, its end lost in darkness. "Don't be afraid," she mocked, the shadows curling around her fingers. "You're exactly where you need to be." "Where are you?" I stammered, trying to find my voice despite the fear choking me. "What do you want?" Her laugh sent a chill through me. "Isn't it obvious? You're my last piece. I've been waiting for you for so long." The walls of the passage seemed to pulse with her words, vibrating as if the very manor were alive. The chilling reality set in. I was trapped in a game I didn't fully understand. I had stumbled into something far beyond my control. That I took a tentative step back, only to feel the cold breath of the growling shadow behind me. I turned, bracing myself for the creature I knew was there. The glow from the gap behind me flickered as the shadows pulsated, and I found myself weighed down by fear. But I couldn't just stay here. "I want to be your pawn," I shouted, trying to summon courage. The woman's expression shifted, her smile faded, replaced by a glower so fierce it cut through the darkness. "You don't have a choice. The manor chooses who stays and who goes." That's when I noticed a glimmer of reflection in her eyes. Not just menace, but a flicker of desperation. My heart raced again, a new thought sparking in my mind. Perhaps she was trapped here too. A realization washed over me: if I wanted to escape, I would have to confront whatever bond tied her to this place. Before I could think more on it, the creature lunged into the light, a mass of shadows with glowing red eyes, snarling as it closed in on me. I whipped back toward the woman. "Help me!" I shouted, but her eyes widened in horror. The moment was fleeting. The growl erupted into a feral snarl, right at my back. That I scrambled toward the gap of light, my hands clawing at the edge. I could feel the heat of its breath on my neck. I had to make it through before it was too late. Then everything went dark. The passage behind me shuddered, and a haunting laugh echoed in the void. Just as I neared the light, two hands shot out from the shadows. My scream grew silent, swallowed by the abyss as I was pulled into a chilling embrace. The last thought I managed was not just of fear, but a desperate longing for the freedom I might never attain. I awoke to the faint glow of dawn streaming through the creaky window of the manor. For a moment, I was confused, engulfed in a heavy fog that lingered in my mind. I was back in the room I had just escaped. Panic surged through me as the memories of the chase, the growling shadow, and the woman in the photograph flooded my thoughts. I sat up, looking around, half expecting to see her lurking in the corners. But the room was empty, still except for the remnants of yesterday's chaos. Rising carefully, I made my way to the door, feeling the weight of what I'd faced. I turned the knob slowly, and it swung open, revealing the hallway just as it had been. Light flickered in and out, a persistent warning that the manor itself was still alive with whispers, secrets, and perhaps the echo of a past I had yet to understand. With each cautious step, I strained to hear if the growling still haunted the air, but the oppressive silence was unnerving in its own right. Barefoot and trembling, I tiptoed down the stairs. The shadows loomed around me, but I found myself drawn forward, either by a need to uncover the truth or perhaps to confront whatever lay in wait. The kitchen was bathed in warming sunlight, offering a brief lull in my anxiety. I seized the moment to gather my thoughts. This wouldn't be as simple as running away. There was something here I needed to confront. Venturing back into the living room, I plunged into memories. Images of Emily and the others from the photo danced in my mind. Could they be a part of me now? Were they linked to my family's tragedy, my own loss? I still didn't know why the woman in the shadows stirred in me such a strange sense of familiarity. But I couldn't shake the feeling that she was no mere ghost. She was tied to the unfinished tapestry of my life. Gathering courage, I shuffled down the hall and paused before the office door again. In my mind, I traced the paths of my fears: the growl, the desperate whispers, Emily's pleading voice. Finally, I gripped the doorknob, steeling myself against the memories of despair that threatened to wash over me. I pushed it open. Darkness met me initially, but as I stepped inside, the morning light pierced through. Papers lay scattered, and the journal rested on the floor, pages fluttering in the breeze that crept through the open window. Picking it up, I flipped it open to find the frantic handwriting on the last page seemed to be fresh, as though it had been written just moments ago. "Find me," the words repeated, as if urging me deeper into the mystery, but wait, I felt a ripple of doubt. Had I truly escaped anything, or was I simply sliding back into the snare that had ensnared me before? Desperation clawed at me, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized the shadows held a different truth, one that didn't abide by my understanding of reality. With my heart racing, I scanned the room. The outlines of shadows shifted restlessly around me, a network of untold stories and broken promises. I had escaped the immediate threat, but the essence of it lingered, an eerie sense of unresolved anguish that wouldn't fade easily. I reached for the lantern, my once steadfast companion, and raised it high, illuminating the corners that the light barely touched. "Emily!" I called, searching for any sign of that elusive presence. Her name echoed softly, almost tauntingly. Shadows flickered at the edges of my vision, twisting and writhing, ready to spill secrets or bind me to darkness once again, but as I stood there, lantern trembling in my hand, I understood one thing: it didn't matter what I saw, or if I would feel her presence again. I had walked through this nightmare, and while I'd uncovered fragments of a story, many truths were still buried deeper, tangled in the fabric of this forsaken manor. Finally, I stepped back out into the hallway, taking a deep breath. I might have escaped this moment, but I wasn't free from the mystery that lingered. I glanced behind me, half expecting the shadows to stretch out and grab me. But there was nothing, only the rustle of the wind. Outside that I moved away from the house, the weight still heavy on my heart as the sun broke over the horizon. I left the manor and its shadows behind, stepping into a world that felt forever changed, yet ambiguous. Because deep down, I knew some threads were never meant to be fully untangled. I carried that ache with me now, something I would not soon forget. And as I walked away, I felt the gentle tug of memories, whispers swirling at the edge of my mind, the kind that reminded me every now and then that some doors are best left unopened.